Hi, welcome. My name is Nick Klosky. I am the co-founder of Honeypoint 3D, and I welcome you to the June 2018 monthly 3D printing and 3D design webinar. This month we will be talking about some differences, some changes that have happened in Fusion 360, which you will already have noticed if you opened up Fusion 360, but I actually have a special version I want to share with you, as well as some new software out that might be of interest. So let's get started here for a moment. Let me adjust my sound for a moment. Perfect. All right, so you see on my screen, we have Fusion 360 up right now. And Fusion 360 went through kind of a UI change. Actually, let me go inside of here and turn off the special preview to kind of show you what Fusion 360 should look like if you, like this, what Fusion 360 should look like if you started it recently or updated, and this is really within the last week or so. Fusion 360 will have gone through kind of a color change. If you see up here, we now have little tabs up here. You can open up new design in tabs like this. And we have our normal kind of ribbon up here with our different environments like this. So it's kind of like everything that you know, except a little bit of change up here, and this is going to get enhanced in the future. But let me kind of show you what this looks like when it will get enhanced, which is kind of an interesting sort of thing. Let me apply this. I have to restart Fusion to kind of show you. Now Fusion is moving to a more modern user interface that is going to probably necessitate me recording my entire class because things are going to be significantly different, as I'll show you right here. So this is kind of a new UI that I have access to as a preview. We still have a drop down here, but instead of having different sort of environments over here, these are much more high level. So design is everything having to do with creating 3D models, and I'll show you what that means. Rendering, animation, simulation, CAM, and drawing. So under design, we no longer have the UI that we had before. We have something different. We have other little tabs right here. This says solid, surface, sheet metal, assemble, tools. We have our kind of normal options here, a little bit more of them, but these are like separate little tabs. You click on surface, you're now in the patch workspace. The patch workspace isn't called patch anymore, it's just called surface modeling. We have some sheet metal tools. Assemble is our normal things where we're adding in joints and creating connections. And then tools are just kind of the add-on things like measuring and all of that. So in the different analysis tools. So this is kind of different, right? We have some differences here. We still have the same drop downs as we had before underneath here. You just get some different options inside of here, but the main thing is clicking on these little changes up here. Now, if you read the Fusion 360 blog, sometime in the future, these tabs will become intelligent so that when you create a sketch in one part of your drawing or one part of your model, and then you go down and you do some changes and you go back, the sketch will actually open up in a new tab and you can edit the sketch there and then close it, and then your model will update instead of your model being kind of erased or destroyed by going to the sketch and then coming back. You'll be able to work on things, maybe multiple sketches at a time, which is pretty darn cool. So I wanted to kind of share what that looked like, and it's kind of a big change, and my classes will eventually adapt to this, but this is not yet done as a design. So I'm not going to change my classes until they a little bit more formalize it, probably in the fall of this year, they said, but who knows? Who knows when that will come? That's a little update on Fusion 360. Now, something I do want to share with you is actually a new piece of software. If we bring up right here, let me resize my browser a little bit so everybody can see it. So everybody knows that I am a big fan of MeshMixer, right? So MeshMixer, very, very powerful software created by a very nice gentleman named Ryan Schmidt. But Ryan is no longer with Autodesk. He worked on MeshMixer a lot and then headed off to do his own things. And now it turns out his own things have turned into some really cool software. Now this is very much beta software, but it is kind of very exciting. If we go to gradient space and do a search for that. This is kind of Ryan's overarching company, but he came out with some software called Cotangent, which I want to introduce to you. So the website for this is cotangent.io, and it is kind of some really interesting software from the creator of MeshMixer, and it's all about 3D printing. A lot of the problems out there with 3D printing are not about the models. Like MeshMixer does a really, really great job at fixing models, but it's about actually creating G-code that is intelligent and does more than just kind of create paths kind of not willy-nilly, but this software is designed to really get into some of the technical things about how G-code should be created to make printing more easy. So I would invite you to go look at it. So this is, eventually this will talk about creating tolerances for parts when they interface with other parts and doing that automatically. As an example, inside of Fusion, I know that I cannot create parts. I could even kind of draw something here in Fusion. So if I created, kind of like the example on his website, a box like this, and I created something that would be cut out of that box like this. So I pop this up into a shape, and then I pop this up into maybe another shape as a new body like that. Great. We have two bodies right here, as you can see. Number 1 and number 2. If I tried to print this, it would just not work. It would work, but if I wanted to slide this one object into the other, it would be so terribly tight, it just wouldn't work, right? Mathematically, on the screen, it works beautifully, but in actual reality, the tolerances for different consumer or professional 3D printers are never like this. They are never absolutely, absolutely perfect, unless you're creating a kind of a multi-material object. But if you're creating something that needs to slide inside of each other, you need to build in tolerances. So for something like this, it would actually be quite a bit of work. I would have to fix it in the sketch, or maybe extrude these by negative 0.15 millimeters. And now you can see that there's a tiny, tiny, tiny gap inside of here. I would have to do that for all of these edges, or if I wanted to do it, in kind of a more efficient way, I would just offset these by, negative 0.15. Not entirely sure why that's not happening. Gotta love Fusion. Oh, there we go. So like 0.15, like that, right? So I would have to offset those, and now you see there, but then I would have to go back and make sure that my extrude actually selected, as you can see, 2 profiles. I don't want 2 profiles. I would have to go back and just extrude one of those, right? So it's a lot of work, and now this is a printable model, but it's not something that's mathematically correct anymore because I made it for printing. What Cotangent does, or what it will do, actually let me go back here, is kind of do that process automatically for you. You can put in a tolerance, and a tolerance setting will make those things print properly. Really, really useful. I'm not actually sure if this is even in Cotangent yet, but this is the sort of process that Ryan is trying to create with Cotangent. Really great supports coming from his experience with MeshMixer, but probably making this even better. Supports for 3D printing, and doing filling and repairing, all sorts of things. So it's something to really keep your eye out on. And if let me resize this a little bit so you can see it. What this does is it will actually create G-code for you. And my face is delightfully blocking all of this. Let me see if I can move that. There we go. So this is just like a little sphere, a little cylinder right here. And you can do things with transforming it and resizing it. You could put brims on there, all of that. But you can end up actually slicing this. So you go down here and you say slice, and now you'll see the actual layers that will be outputted as G-code. You'll have different abilities to put in different printers, RepRap printers, PrinterBot, Monoprice, all sorts of things. You can edit these yourself, right? So I think there'll be more presets in the future, but this is just kind of some basics if you want to play with your own. And then say all sorts of things for layer height, shells, all of that. But there's a lot of other tools inside of here for working with meshes and repairing them, putting in supports, all of that. Very, very cool. And something to kind of look at. You click to the repair here, and there's all sorts of different tools inside of this that help you do remeshing and solidifying and all of that. So I wanted to kind of bring that up and let you know about cotangent. Keep your eye on it. For sure, interesting. All right. So let's go back into Mesh Mixer. Let me resize this again so that everybody can see it properly. And move myself. Hopefully this is working. I think it is. I'll make myself a little bit smaller here. Well, we've gotten some requests, or I've gotten some requests over the last month to talk again about how to do some repairing of meshes that come in from scanners, and how to do a little bit more advanced sorts of things. And actually, a couple of those requests boil down to a feature that people keep forgetting how to use, which is the fit primitives command. So let me kind of show you an example of that. If we, and I like to use examples that are very easy for you to do, so that's why I always kind of use the bunny, because the bunny is just part of Mesh Mixer. So if we bring in the bunny, analysis to inspector, and just repair the bunny like that. So now a lot of people ask how to fix scans when the scans are kind of jagged. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the ear here and go into the sculpt tool and refine it. And what I'm going to do is, if I hit the wireframe, I want to make this a lot more dense than it was before. I could even make both of these ears more dense using the refine tool right here. There we go. What happens a lot with 3D scans is, now I'll go to the select tool, is for kind of razor edges. The razor edges might not well come in. And so what you would get a lot with 3D scans is the edge of something like this just might not come in, right? You might get the rest of it, a scanner might hit this really well, but it wouldn't hit this, and then how to repair this. Now the problem with doing any sort of automated repair, if we do the inspector and we say flat fill or smooth fill, and we fill that, is it works pretty well in this, but not the best. This is actually a pretty good example where it follows the curve around, but a lot of times when we do something like this, it fills it in a kind of a not the best way. You could certainly smooth this out, but I kind of want to show you some more advanced tools on how to fix this. You can kind of break this into 3 different areas for any of these problem meshes. And if you click on one side and click on another, right, you can do a bridge command like that. And what that does is the bridge command now makes this area into a hole that is much more easily filled if you press the F key, right? So that is one technique of using the bridge command to break up kind of complex holes into sections that you can fill with the more traditional tools. But if you have a really complex thing, if you wanted to get a really nice curve on this, there's a different way of doing this. I'm just going to go and select. I'm going to select down one edge like this and an equivalent edge over here. Roughly equivalent. Maybe make this come down a little bit more like this. And now we would go to Edit to Fit Primitive. So it just puts in a primitive right there. We would want to use a cylinder. So what it does is it creates two cylinders. We don't want that. And we would want to say single primitive. So what this does is it creates a cylinder that is kind of in both of those selections as much as it can be. So you naturally get something that is a bridge between both of those. And you can kind of say create new object if you want. And we have a new object down here. It's almost there, right? So we can go in and click on some of these rotation tools to maybe rotate it to be a bit more where we would want it to be. We can scale it, kind of move it. That's kind of where I might want it to be. And click Accept. And this is a kind of a not very good shape, so I'm going to Control A and remesh it. And what we would do is linear subdivision a few times. I'm going to do linear subdivision once, linear subdivision twice. Now it's super dense, but it's still regular, and then do a remesh one more time with relative or adaptive density to get a nice, more organic sort of shape. That's great. And remember, we don't have the other one selected. We're just in this one. So I can go in and kind of select around the bottom. And I'm not selecting the other tool or the other shape in there. And I'm kind of matching the edges for the edges like this. And I'm going to delete it. And it doesn't matter if I left some floating bits in there. We can clean those up later. But now you can kind of see that those two areas match. I'm going to select, oh, you actually can't see that. There we go. I'm going to select both of these and hit the Combine tool. So now they're in the same shape. And we can actually just join these together. So I'm going to go up to here and up to here and hit the Control B for bridge that side. And do the same over here and there. Control B for there. That's great. Probably don't want this, this kind of edge over here. And you also see that if I zoom in, I'm starting to lose all of this. This is because of a clipping distance. The way to get around that is just select a little area like this and go to View and Recenter View. And now we can zoom in all we want. Probably don't need this edge right here, so I can, since this is actually a different color of face group, I can just double click on this. It'll select the face group and get rid of it. So now we have a couple different ways we could fill these holes, but I always kind of go back to this. If we go to Sculpt, to Brushes, to Robust Smooth, awesome tool. I love this because as you hit this, it will actually zipper things closed as long as you have refinement turned on and all of that. Make my brush a little bit bigger, and you can kind of see it's closing it up as I go. Like this. I mean, I could certainly just fill this in, but I find that more pleasing to do. And I didn't really get rid of that edge, but that's not that bad. But I see I can kind of now merge this in different ways. Make it a little bit less. Start blending it in more. Like that. But this is a way of using the fit primitive command to rebuild geometry. In this case, we might not have really needed it. If we double click on this edge and hit the F key and do this, we can kind of get a good approximation. But sometimes the fill command doesn't really work, and you might need to to do something a little bit more advanced. Now, for something like this, the fill command doesn't really work as well anymore. So there are other tools you could use that may or may not work. I kind of like the drag tool. The drag is a good one as long as you're perpendicular to what you want, because you can kind of drag shapes kind of where you want them to be. As long as you're kind of looking straight at the object, it will drag in the proper plane. Well, not too proper, but we could always drag this stuff over. Turn off volumetric because I only want it to affect the thing that I'm touching. That, not the best, but something that I could certainly adapt and fix later on, right? But drag tool is very nice to be able to fix some things. Like there's a very small chance that this will work, but I could, bridge this to here possibly. Yes. And then again, hit my robust smooth tool, which I adore, and start kind of zippering up this side. Not entirely sure if this is going to work, but it does actually look like it's working. I don't know what it's doing to the other side, but we'll see. Right, and that was just the result of the drag command, and it created some horrible geometry, but the robust smooth tool kind of fixed it. So the way that I would fix the top ear of this bunny is just select a little part here, select a little part here, and bridge that. And I could certainly just double click on this hole or fill it, or I can go back to the robust smooth because it's just something I like about it. Something feels real good about zippering this up. But once this is a nice hole like this, you can just hit the select, double click on that, and hit F for fill. And that's probably a little bit faster. And this is now a nice one that we can fill as well. And I'll go back and just do some robust smoothing on that to get the kind of jaggies down. And a little bit. And we have actually a nice ear. A little bit rough on this side. Go back. And that is a pretty good thing. We have some things floating. There's probably, I think, one thing still inside of this, but we can get rid of that by the inspector tool. And now that ear is real nice. We can go back in and remesh everything to get rid of the different densities inside of here. If you want, you can. I have a kind of an aggressive remeshing setting here, but something like that. And now it's all kind of even, and that ear looks real nice. Right, so that's some, let me make myself bigger so you can see me over here. Hopefully this is working. So that hopefully kind of shows you some more advanced tools, but really it's that fit primitive that helps you get some sort of starter geometry in there that's really, really useful for doing mesh cleanups that are maybe more advanced, where lots of areas of things are missing, because sometimes it happens with scanning where you have a large area that you just want to be flat, but you have kind of things coming up and things coming up. It's very easy to kind of flatten those out, fit primitive, and put a plane in there, and then kind of mesh that in. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about with Mesh Mixer. I really appreciate all of the questions and suggestions that you provide every month, and I really hope that they keep coming. So you can always email me at nick@honeypoint3d.com, and I hope that this monthly webinar was of use to you, and have a great month. I'll see you back in July. Thank you.